Hi, everyone, and welcome to OneMicNite, the podcast that brings you stories of artists and people on their journey, helping to guide, answer questions, and motivate you in life and the business. You know who I am. It's Marcos Luis. I'm back. We're still in year 18 of OneMicNite, so I want to thank you, everyone who's been along with me on this journey, helping to inspire, helping to document people's lives, and helping to give value, and hopefully you get something out of it too. Today, my guest is incredible. She is a fellow podcaster. She is a psychic medium. She's a YouTuber, a TikToker. She does all those things, but here she's going to talk to us and share some of her life with us. So please welcome Caitlin Greenglass to OneMicNite. How are you, Caitlin?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Marcos. I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy to be here.
Listen, I had a tongue twister just now, but it's okay. We'll move right along. That's the way we do it
Okay,
here.
that's the way we do it.
Listen, I have questions.
Yes.
The first
Go
question
fire
is,
away.
you know what I mean? The first question is, who is Caitlin Greenglass?
I asked myself that. It's funny you say that because I have been in the process of reevaluating my life. I go through this periodically, and at the age of 55, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm closer now. I joke that I'm closer to 60 than I am 50 now. So it's time to kind of do some reassessment. So when I talk about my life, I talk about not how I identify, but how I live my life. So
Mhm.
I have Caitlin Greenglass. I am a wife, married since February 24th, 2024, my wonderful wife. I'm a lesbian. I am a project manager for a Fortune 500 company by day. I also have many psychic medium gifts, and I'm intuitive as well. I read tarot cards, and I'm an aunt, a great aunt to many great kids in my life. And I have three wonderful dogs and a cat in my life. So I'm all those things, and yet they're separate, but I don't identify solely by one thing. And I also want to include that I am also a trauma survivor. I have complex PTSD because of my childhood. I was raped at the age of 5, and I was repeatedly sexually abused by a family member for many, many years. And I've had lots of ups and downs. I faced a food addiction, so I am many things, but I am everything. So mostly what I am is a person who wants to make a difference in the world. I am trying to put my indent on life as we know it and make an impact on other people in every aspect of who I am with my personality. So as a project manager, I work for my company and they want to see their customers successfully installed. So I want to make a positive impact and have a positive customer experience. As a wife, I want to be the very best wife I can be. As a psychic, I want to send messages for for people, for their loved ones who have passed, and other messages from the universe, spirit, Allah, whoever you call it, God. I want to make a difference in people's lives who've been where I am, been down the depths of despair and pain and suffering, and risen up. And I know it may sound like a cliche, but risen like the phoenix out of the ashes.
Yeah,
I have a lot of things. I have a lot of labels, but I'm also all those combined together.
you absolutely are. And I love that. I love all of that. I want to say You start out by saying you're a wife. You are, these are things that aren't necessarily in this order, but I do know that that's something that's important to you. And
Yes,
who we were yesterday is not who we are today, nor will it be
that is,
tomorrow. And as you
that's
said, we
correct.
are a sum of all of our experiences. That is the essence of who we are.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Yes,
So I want to take it back just a little bit because finding out the essence of who you are, you mentioned there were some traumatic experiences in your life.
yes.
And how do we get from point A to point, I'm not even going to say Z because your journey's not over. How did we get to point um, M to where we are today?
Mm, mm. And it is continuing, so like many trauma survivors, and this is, I'm sure if there's anyone listening out here who is, you can get to a point where you are not in denial. I mean, you know what happened to you, but you just don't, maybe you haven't been shown compassion or understanding, or you've kept it secret, and you just don't realize that you are a human being who had something absolutely horrific happen to you. So I was like that for years. I mean, I at the age of 50, uh, I told my girlfriend at the time, as I tell all my partners, about my history. And I, she was the first one to say to me, "That is really awful what happened to you, Caitlin. And have you talked to anyone about this? Have you been to a therapist?" And then that light bulb goes on. And I think a lot of it can start with, there is one incident or there is one person who can trigger something good in you that turns the light bulb on.
Yes.
I had exhibited, looking back, symptoms of PTSD and bipolar and all these, all my diagnoses for years. But I did not relate it to what had happened to me. And when that hit me, and I reached out, uh, to seek out a therapist, it started me on this path where felt like mentally, it can happen physically too. You feel like you're run over by a truck.
Mm.
So I had been going on workaholic, all that, living my life, doing whatever, because I didn't have to focus on what happened to me. And therapy, first of all, is very hard. It's not easy to get into therapy. Not everybody has access to it. It's a insurance. You have to pay for that. And some people are underinsured. Some people don't have any insurance, and there are people who, have to pay an exorbitant amount, co-pays and all that. Plus, their therapists are very high in demand. Back in 2014, when this happened, when I had my first realization, I was lucky. I was fortunate. My company offers a tremendous benefit, mental health benefit, and they have a healthcare advocate who helps you look for a therapist. So I hooked up with my first therapist, uh, and therapy is tough. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for anybody. Everyone might think that, oh, you talk to a therapist, everything's better, everything's roses. No, it's not. It is finally forcing yourself and your mind with these long suppressed memories and actions and everything else way buried deep down inside, and it's bringing them bubbling up to the surface. It's work. It's
Because these
hard
are
work.
these are coping mechanisms that you had to have in order to
Right.
continue on with your daily life. You had to put that away somewhere so that you could function day to day. And so
Right.
to
Exactly.
revisit that it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard.
Yeah. And right. And I had seen a psychiatrist when after I had my one of my surgeries back in 2010, because I was not in a good state, but at all. So he prescribed a mood stabilizer for me. So at that time, he diagnosed me with bipolar, but there's such a stigma with mental illness,
Sure. Hmm.
and I just didn't want to admit. I don't know why. It seems silly now. And I had this illness. I could say, okay, PTSD, and people associate that mostly with veterans, but people do have PTSD or complex PTSD. So anyway, I'm being long-winded here, but I'll try to make it as brief as I can. So I was in a therapist. I had to leave that therapist because she had to leave her practice. And so I had to find a new therapist. So I found a new therapist. And then I moved in with Shelley. So that was distance. So I had to go to another therapist. And I didn't feel, I felt like he wasn't really helping me. So I had to get a new therapist. And also, I was feeling, okay, I've gone to therapy a few times. I'm good. I'm all good.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a psychiatrist. I'm on meds. I'm all good. But you know what? The hardest process too, and this is why I tell people, do not give up. I think a lot of people get discouraged
Yeah.
because at this point in their journey, here they have all this, feelings coming up. And sometimes you're prescribed. I just recently cleaned out my medication drawer that I had with all the prescriptions I went through, different dosages, different pills. This would work. And then I maxed out on it and I tried this and that and this. And finally, now it is in 2024, I have reached the right combination with my psychiatrist, who I've had for 9 years, by the way. 9 years it took her and I to work together to find the right medication combination for me. And it took me a long time to find the right therapist and to address everything.
Exactly that.
So,
Exactly
yeah,
that.
so it's not easy navigating. A lot of people uh, don't realize that you have your physical health issues, and I'm not knocking anybody with like physical health issues, but it's just so much easier to come forward and say, how do I manage diabetes or how do I manage my heart disease? Than it is to say, how do I manage my bipolar and generalized anxiety disorder and all that. So once I got to that point, I you start this is another cliche, but honestly, this is the way I truly feel. It starts to get better, believe it or not. It really does. When you are in a good space, and it helps if you have a great support group.
Hmm.
I eliminated the ones who were toxic and not supportive of me at all. They're gone. I don't miss them. Honestly, that was tough, but I cut the cord finally. And that included some family members as well. Once I did that, and I have Shelly in my life, and I have her family who loves and embraces me, and our friends that we met together and came through her, my life is finally on that path at 55. Okay. So remember, this started when I was 5 years old. Okay. I'm 55 now. It
Right.
took me 50 years to get to this point. And I maintained a full-time job at all times. I've been with my company for over 24 years. I worked my way up from a call center rep all the way up to a project manager two certified. I maintain, I'm a homeowner now. Like I said, I'm married. I have a beautiful, I love my truck, my pickup truck, my GMC Sierra. We have a camper. Life is pretty good and it does get better. So, but to get that way, to answer your question,
Hmm.
you have to go. I compare myself. all the time to the lotus. The lotus is a flower. It's beautiful. Japanese or Asian flower that you see growing. Lotuses start in the mud, right? They grow in the mud, and they push themselves up through the mud to become a beautiful blooming. And that's what I feel has happened to me.
This is, I'm a firm believer that everything happens in alignment. I just read an article about the lotus yesterday.
Wow.
This is incredible. Absolutely.
Hmm.
You hit a couple of key things that I want to say. Um, One, being the age that we are, and I'm including
Hmm.
myself, it's not something we talked about growing up
No,
when things
no,
happen, mental
definitely
health.
not.
Those things were always pushed to the side. Oh, yeah, that person has a child who's, she's not right, but the child can't get help or the person can't get help. It's always pushed away. There's such a stigma attached to it. So, anyone who has mental health or PTSD or has been assaulted, you were not allowed to take care of your problem. The other thing you said was some things are managed, in terms of medicine and things like that. But other things, we can get to the root of it. We can find the solution to. Some of it's by talking about it, like you said. Some of it's by, whatever we need to do to actually solve it and not just necessarily take medicine. So you said you were cleaning out all your medicines. Some of the things were just managing your problem. But a lot of
Right.
your problem was actually speaking about it, getting help from
Yes.
someone and finding a solution and a place in you, in your mind that you can get at peace with and you can understand what happened.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. So,
you know?
right. So, and that's what I want to tell people too. You're absolutely right.
Hmm.
In our age, we were told children, a lot of us were told children ought to be seen and not heard. You have no opinion. Of course, you're going to do it. You're going to do it because I told you to do it.
Right.
If you're bored, go do the dishes, mop the floor. Oh, just snap out of it. I heard, oh, your grandmother was just stone crazy. She was crazy,
Yes.
and I believe my father was mentally ill as well. That was not talked about. You did not talk about. We weren't allowed to talk about that stuff like that. That was not, no, that was taboo. Do not talk about that. Do not talk about finances. You know, you we were, basically left on our own, and and people just did not talk about mental health.
Mental health. Yeah.
It
And
was
so where does
seen
that put
as
people
shame.
like you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but where did
No,
that
no,
put
no,
you?
you're fine.
Where did that put you? You're not allowed to talk about this situation that happened. Is anyone going to believe me? It's someone that I know, someone from the family, or someone, where does that put you as the victim
Hmm.
at that space in your life? You know, where does that put people?
Exactly.
And I don't mean you specifically,
Exactly.
but just where does that put
No,
people so they're
everyone.
unable to talk about these things and you know understand that they are the victim or something happened to them and they are not the cause of what someone
Hmm.
else's illness, if you want to call it an illness, did, you know, yeah, that's a hard place to
Yeah,
be in. It sends people to a dark, dark place.
yeah, I needed to hear that, believe it or not, because, you know, there's a lot of victim blaming.
Hmm.
And we do it on our own. We'll say to ourselves,
Sure.
I would say, I thought it was, why didn't I say anything to stop it? Well, because the first man who did this to me told me not to tell anyone. And when you're a kid, and that was, you're a kid, you respect adults. Adult tells you something, you listen to them.
Right. Yeah.
And the feeling that you get growing up is that you have no opinion, that that we don't talk about, anything that goes on outside these doors, And so, and then the power was in his hands. the family member who abused me. I was a kid.
Hmm.
You know, we don't realize we were children.
Children.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you have a niece who's 12 years old or a nephew who's 10, look at them and imagine that they could be going through this. They don't have the power. They don't have the control. You know, and that's why, you know, like with PTSD, why we always feel like we are hyper vigilant and we always have to maintain control because we had no control. You know, I I asked my therapist once if I had some sort of mark on my forehead that painted me as victimized me as it happened. And she said, no, that is not you, Caitlin. She said, predators know who to target. They know who to target. They look for certain criteria. This is what they do. They are very sneaky and manipulative. None of that is anyone's fault. I cannot emphasize this enough to anyone out there. And you're right about talking about it. Talk about it to someone that you
Right.
trust. And if someone does not believe you or denigrates you or diminishes you, that person does not belong in your life. Move on to someone who does.
Absolutely.
They're the only ones who matter. So
Absolutely.
you're only, what's it? They say in AA, I think you're only as sick as your secrets. I think that's the saying.
Hmm.
Secrets keep you sick. Talk about it. Talk about it. You've got to get it out. You can't, for me, holding it in meant that I was binge eating, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was trying to shove things down. Um, I was doing everything I could to block it out, and I was not feeling well. I would get, as a kid, I would get migraine headaches, and uh, you know, you can get stomach issues, and my back would hurt me, all of that. So it's got to come out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you hold it in, you
It
know, that's what I
absolutely
want to talk.
manifests physically and otherwise. Yeah. When you're
Yeah.
holding that in. Um, and I have to say, I relate to you on so many levels. I mean, I know there are a lot of families that has happened to. It happened in my
Mm,
family. And the
mm,
person that it happened to has been on the show and we've talked about it. However,
mm-hmm.
it's, even though that stopped, I see everything else that's happened in that person's life since then. And, we're on a journey to try to fix it. It's devastating. And until you reach a place where you can find your peace, and I think you said another key thing is the support. You need support. That's the biggest thing
Mm,
people need is to feel like they're
yes,
supported in their journey of recovery
absolutely.
and, you know, become what we're all trying to achieve in our life is wholeness. How do we become
Yes.
whole again? And
Right.
support from people that love us and care about us. That's what we need. That's what we
Mm-hmm.
need.
Right. You do. You need unconditional. You know, I've gotten to the point in my life where I just say, you know what? This is what I need. This is what I want. If you're not able to give this to me, then I've got to move on. You know, if you
Absolutely.
are unable, you know, and I recently blocked family members after years of not doing so for different reasons. I had to do that, and I was afraid to do it for a long, long time. I was afraid to do it. I was afraid to cut people off. And when it happened, this feeling came over me that I was not expecting. It felt like this huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And that was
Beautiful.
a wonderful feeling that I did not
Mhm.
expect, but it feels so good, and I do not regret doing it at all.
And you shouldn't.
Nope.
It's that old cliche, my cup runneth over. Let me fill my
Yes.
cup up first. Let everybody else get the run over. How about that?
Yep. Yeah,
Let everybody else
absolutely.
get the run over. I have to be full. I have to be full first in order to function, and do
Mm,
what I need to do. And everybody else can
yeah.
get what's left over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not selfish.
Mm,
It's just I have to be whole.
yeah. And yeah, just absolutely. And you know, one of my other goals too is I want mothers, moms and dads, uncles, if you are a guardian or know a young child that you care deeply for and love, then, there are ways that you can love and support them as well, in this journey. And as a friend, uh, people often don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. But
I'm
honestly,
going to jump in there.
yeah,
Even our
uh,
parents, not everyone can be a great parent. They don't know. Sometimes they don't
right.
know. People have young parents. They're still children too. They're still learning. They're
Absolutely.
still going through a cycle where their parents weren't necessarily the best parents because they had to work and they had to do this and they had to do that. So
Absolutely.
parenting is hard. But we as a community, we as a village need to look out for others. I'm in the place now where I just told you I had a funeral in my family where
Yeah.
I'm the older uncle now. So I go in, I'm looking, I'm making sure everybody's okay. Two of my nephews and nieces, they need a little extra love, a little extra care. So I'm taking that on as the older member of the family to make sure that they are okay and to be in tune with them. Nothing against their parents, but I see because I have more life experience and I see what these kids need. So I'm taking that on. And we are all responsible to make sure that our kids and other kids are okay. If we see one, let's
Absolutely.
help. Let's help.
Right. You don't realize how much you can by doing something really little. It doesn't have to be grand gestures. I'm not one for grand gestures anyway.
Right.
For me, you can show me who you are and how supportive you are by doing something small for me.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. So mom and dad aren't, I'm not, nobody is perfect. Nobody
Nobody.
is.
Right.
And I've make mistakes. Parents make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But the real, test is, okay, so how do we bounce back from those mistakes?
Yes.
We learn. We learn by our mistakes. We do better when we have a mistake in our life. We apologize when we need to, when we own up to what we own up to, which if I have had to do, and we do better, and that's all we can ask. It's when someone is blatantly turning a blind eye that really gets to me.
That's the
So,
hard part. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So how
absolutely.
did you get to the point where you are now? You seem like you're
Yeah,
very at peace. And I said this, I think maybe before we started recording, that your energy is very peaceful now. I didn't know
yes.
you a few years ago, but I felt that energy just in your presence
Yeah.
here. How do you get to
Yeah,
that
well, thank
point?
you. Well, I have my moments, trust me. I do work in a very stressful, high profile position. And I am married and I love my wife and thank God she loves me. Uh,
And there you go. Support.
but
Support.
I think a lot of it is my therapist really helped me, and I also my belief system, my faith, and I don't subscribe to any one organized religion. I take aspects of all of them. I'm still trying to figure all that out, but I take aspects from my spirit guides and meditation and being joyful. There are moments where I just find complete and utter joy in life, and a lot of it has to do also with age. You get wiser. You narrow down really what becomes most important to you. Having a roof over your head is very important to me, and being felt secure and safe, and having a wonderful, understanding partner in life. And plus, I did a lot of the hard work. Like I said, part of it is the medicine I'm on. They help me, but a lot of it too is my therapist, who I found the right therapist who she specializes in like cognitive behavioral therapy, And you got to give, I felt myself when these techniques that she would teach me and we talk about, you got to give yourself a chance to really say, okay, I'm going to do this. It feels stupid, but I'm going to do it. Okay, I did it. Oh, wow. That really made me feel better. And I journal every day. I write every day. Got to get those feelings out. I just feel this sense of calm, like everything's going to be okay. I focus on what's within my control, and I let go of things that are beyond my control. And like, if I can, like I said, if I can make a difference in someone's life that day, that also brings me a sense of peace and calm, knowing that I've helped someone.
I like that. I like that. We should all do that. We should all
Mm,
do that.
yeah.
Um, what do you, I want to, you know what? I want to do this.
Okay.
Is there more you want to say about this? Because I want to have you back on another show and talk about maybe your psychic medium and we can talk about spirituality and things
Sure.
like that, if you don't mind.
Mm,
Because I think this is a
sure.
valuable conversation that we've had, and I think a lot of people are going to take a lot from it. I think
Hmm.
that having good mental hygiene is important. And everyone
Absolutely.
knows that on this show with One Mic Night Talk, I have talks of mental health, and it's important to destigmatize things like this and to
Right.
open up and see therapists and whatever works for you. It could be breath work, it could be meditation, it could be a
Hmm.
combination of medicines and everything. And your journey is certainly inspirational in so many ways. So I kind of want to leave them with that, if that's okay.
Sure.
Is there
Absolutely.
anything else you want to say about it? Because your journey has been fearless, it's been inspirational, it's been encouraging. And so I want to thank you for that.
Happy to do it. I really appreciate being on here. The only thing I want to say, and I say this when I do some of my videos on TikTok or Instagram, I always say, you know what? You are a beautiful person. You are. I don't think people realize you are a beautiful human being.
Hmm.
Look what was created when you were born. You are perfect in every way. I don't think people hear that enough. We hear a lot of criticism. You're perfect in every way. We can all improve. That's not what I'm saying. But you are perfect in every way. Don't change for anybody. And life is magical. You just have to look for those magical moments in your life. Sometimes you have to look really, really hard, but they are there. So look for those magical moments. Find your joy. I cannot tell you this enough. And like I said, like you said, Marcos, it takes a village. So be that village. Be that village for someone.
Absolutely.
Give back to your community. Tell your story. Give back to your community.
And tell people your journey and let them know how
Yes.
have fought the challenge, you know,
Yes.
and you're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with it every day. It's not something that's you won the battle. I've won the battle. It's a continuous thing that we have to, deal with every day. It's every
Mm-hmm.
day, and I'm not
Yes,
saying that in a
absolutely.
negative way. I'm saying it in a positive way.
Right.
We work through it every day.
Yes, we do.
How can we get in touch with you? Do you have a Facebook group or do you have something that tell us
Yeah.
about your podcast. Know your podcast. Definitely
Yeah.
mention and
So
talk about that.
I have I have the Healing Light podcast. It's I launch new episodes the first and third Tuesday of every month. However, I have I just did a show on the 13th, and I'll have one, my goodness, tomorrow. I'm on my second season, and we talk about, that's evolved as well. I'm a psychic medium. I'm intuitive. I read tarot cards. I'm also a Reiki master. I've talked to a lot of psychics, mediums, paranormal, but I've also, like, I want to expand my podcast to talk about inspiring stories and talk about trauma and healing on especially your spiritual journey, healing with that. So you can find me it's on Spreaker. I'm also on Amazon. You can find my podcast there, as well as Spotify, really anywhere you find your podcast. On Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and now X. I wasn't really doing X, but I am everywhere. It's simple. The Healing Light NH. Just the Healing Light NH. Send me a message. Look at my content. I post funny memes. I post inspirational. I do oracle card readings, tarot card readings. Oh, tonight is the full moon in Aquarius. It's all about getting rid of that frenetic energy. It's going to incorporate a lot of emotions. So tonight's a great night to honor the full moon. So find me on there. And if you have an idea for the podcast, someone you want me to interview, let me know. So I'm all yours.
There you go. You have it. And we're definitely having you back because psychic mediums and things like that, I want to talk to you about. I have some intuitive sense myself. So we're definitely going to talk about that. Right. Caitlin Greenglass, The Healing Light NH is the podcast. Make sure you check her out. This is only one part of her beautiful journey. I'm glad she shared it with us. The show is called OneMicNite. Make sure you follow us, OneMicNite, on all the social media. Hop into the live chat when the episodes air every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. And we're now streaming on Facebook, so you can go to the OneMicNite Facebook page, post your flyers. You can post your podcast there if you like. We're a community. And you can follow me at Marcos Luis, MarcosLuis. Find out what I'm doing. I got a couple of shows coming up. I'm back on stage through this year and next year. And I've got a film I'm working on too. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining us. This is OneMicNite. Bye-bye.